peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
So my vision is one of reforming the organization, it's one of recovery, it's one of renewal, and it's one of getting results for the multilateral trading system. I know this institution, I'm passionate about it, I know the corridors, I've walked them, I've negotiated in them, and I think it's one of the most amazing institutions for multilateral trade relations, for negotiations to take place, for countries to come together, agree on concrete outcomes for the multilateral trading system. I'm also running on my experience, my vision for the organization, and my commitment to reform. Every country wants to walk away feeling that they have achieved. That's what the WTO does for its members.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for finding time to join us this very afternoon here in Nairobi. Just a few minutes, about 5 minutes past 3 p.m. here in Nairobi, East African time. I trust that you had a good weekend. Thank you so much. This is Diaspora Dispatches, where you get to look at the news making headline across the continent, and of course, the station is Punchline Africa Television, where we've made it our business to highlight, and to, just talk about our own issues and our own problems and our own successes in this continent, and also to, of course, ask for that change that I know is well needed here in the continent. My name is Miriam Agutu, and a very warm welcome to you. And let's just get into it, and we start with Mali. And Mali's main political opposition has rejected a plan by regional has rejected a plan by regional mediators aimed at ending an escalating political crisis in a country already dealing with a violent Islamic insurgency. The June 5th movement turned down a plan Sunday by negotiators from the West African Regional Bloc, ECOWAS, that would call on President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta to form a unity government with the opposition party. The embattled president has already conceded to a previous opposition demand to dissolve the country's constitutional court. But the June 5th movement has remained steadfast in its demands that President Keïta resigns, as the West African nation remains mired in an economic crisis, corruption, and the 8-year-old Islamic insurgency in central Mali. Anger is also brewing about the results of 31 legislative races that remain in dispute. And then we head to Nigeria, where there has been deadly clashes between security forces and gunmen in northeastern Nigeria. An official statement from the military said troops were ambushed as they advanced in a notorious camp for criminal gangs deep inside a forest near Jibia and Katsina State. It said 17 bandits had been killed and 3 soldiers died in Saturday's violence. But there are reports that the army lost 16 troops, including several senior officers, and 28 others were wounded. Criminal gangs on bikes frequently attack communities in northwestern Nigeria, killing or kidnapping people for ransom, as well as stealing livestock. More than 8,000 people have lost their lives there over the last decade, and military operations and the offer of an amnesty have failed to stop the violence. And still staying with Nigeria and matters in security, and gunmen suspected to be Fulani herdsmen on Sunday night invaded Kukum Daji in Kauru local government area of Kaduna State, killing more than 21 residents of the area. And of course, the incident happened around 11 p.m. on Sunday, and that is a story that is still developing, and we shall bring you the latest perhaps tomorrow as we continue to even highlight the insecurity that has become very rampant there in Nigeria, and that's why we have to talk. Somebody here last week was asking, why do we have to keep talking about this? Because it matters. The insecurity is not just staying with Nigeria, but also with time it has been exported to other countries, and that's why we have to talk about things like that in Nigeria and elsewhere, indeed across the continent. And we move to Congo, Brazaville, where a court in Congo, Brazaville, has sentenced the former mayor of the capital to 5 years in prison for corruption. Christian Roger Okemba, who was elected Brazaville's mayor 3 years ago, was accused of transferring $2 million of public funds into a private bank account. His lawyer says he will appeal. Okemba's wife was given a 3-year suspended sentence. They must both pay a fine of $350,000 to the mayor's office. We go to Zimbabwe, where police in Zimbabwe are investigating the country's biggest mobile phone operator, Econet Wireless, for suspected money laundering via fake subscriber accounts. The company, founded by UK-based millionaire Strive Masiyiwa, has not yet commented. The government has been at loggerheads with phone operators whom they accuse of bearing some responsibility for the country's economic crisis. According to a search warrant, police want Econet Wireless to disclose its customers' details and records of all transactions conducted over the last 6 months. With some 10 million subscribers, that will be quite a tall stock of documents for the government there. Now, the police accuse the company of sabotaging the economy by creating fake customers in order to buy scarce foreign currency on the black market. Zimbabwe's central bank has made similar accusations before, which Econet has since denied. And then we move to Sudan, where the Sudanese army says it has started legal action against activists and journalists, accusing them of insulting the military. Now, in a statement, it said they had crossed the bounds of patience. Activists and rights groups complained that the army has blocked investigations into the killing of scores of protesters in June last year. The Sudanese military denies this and says those who committed offenses will be punished. Last month, tens of thousands of people took to the streets of several cities, calling for faster reform and greater civil rule, following the overthrow of long-serving ruler Omar al-Bashir in April last year. Sudan, being led by an interim government made up of senior military men and civilians. And we go to the DRC, where hundreds of Catholics in the Democratic Republic of Congo's capital, Kinshasa, on Sunday took to the streets. The protesters denounced the appointment of Ronsard Malonda as chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission. They accuse him of manipulating and rigging during the country's last general election. The march is the third protest organized within 10 days in the Congolese capital. The peaceful march was accorded police protection, unlike the July 9th protest, which claimed the lives of at least 5 protesters. And then we go to Malawi, where Malawi police have arrested former President Peter Mutharika's bodyguard, this time on charge of attempted murder. The government said Friday's arrest of Norman Chisale was part of an initiative to fight corruption left over from Mutharika's administration. The Democratic Progressive Party, the DPP, now in opposition, said the fresh charge was politically motivated. Chisale was arrested Tuesday on fraud and money laundering charges related to a cement import investigation. A court in Lilongwe granted him bail. His second arrest was on an attempted murder charge for allegedly shooting a woman in the knee 2 months ago in Blantyre. Shooting a woman in the knee. What a interesting place to choose to shoot. And no part in the body would be nice shooting, but I mean, I'd like to know the circumstances surrounding the shooting, and I'll probably get into the details. I'll look for that story and probe further. We move to Uganda, where police in Uganda used a tear gas Friday to break up a crowd supporters outside the offices of the opposition People Power movement. Critics say police often target opposition rallies but never break up gatherings of the ruling party. Now, the People Power movement office was humming with activity on Friday as aspiring candidates picked up and returned nomination forms for 2021 general elections. As aspirants walked in, so did their supporters, chanting chanting People Power movement songs that attracted the attention of police, who at first monitored the situation, then fired tear gas. One of the aspirants who returned their forms Friday is opposition legislator Francis Zake, whose arrival sparked excitement among the dozens who had gathered outside the office, many donning red berets and red overalls. Now Zake, who currently moves around on crutches, is still nursing a spinal injury and has his leg paralyzed after his arrest in April. He was allegedly assaulted while detained by security agencies for defying presidential directives. We go to some news about the East African community, and now the bloc is facing a deeper financial crisis after a crucial Council of Ministers meeting on budget was postponed for 2 weeks. The EAC 2020-2021 annual budget estimates are yet to be tabled at the East African Legislative Assembly nearly 1 month after the 2019-2020 financial year elapsed. An extraordinary Council of Ministers meeting planned for July 15th to approve the budget failed to take place after Tanzania requested for its postponement to July 31st. Lateness in tabling the budget has strained financing of the East African Community Secretariat and its agencies spread across the region, the EALA and the East African Court of Justice. And we move to South Sudan, where South Sudan's Vice President, Dr. James Wani Iga, is an unprecedented move and knelt before local chiefs in Bor to beg for peace amidst reports of ongoing intercommunal clashes in the tabloid Greater Jonglei State. According to a local radio station, Iga arrived in Bor on Sunday, leading a very high-level committee to conduct meetings with elders from Jonglei and Pibor administrative area to resolve perpetual intercommunal conflicts. While meeting with local chiefs, Iga knelt down in humility to appeal to the leaders to persuade their children who were involved in intercommunal clashes with neighboring communities to stop. The vice president was appointed by President Salva Kiir to head an investigation committee into the conflict and identify the root causes of intercommunal violence in the Greater Jonglei State. In May, the United Nations Human Rights Commission noted an increase in communal violence that has claimed so far 658 lives, wounding 452, and also 592 abductions have been reported. And we go to back to Sudan, where dozens of pro-Sharia supporters protested in Sudan's capital on Friday over recent government reforms that allow non-Muslims to drink alcohol and scrap the apostasy law and public flogging. The reforms come after longtime ruler Omar al-Bashir was ousted last year following massive street protest. Now, the protesters who opposed an easing of Islamic laws shouted, "God's laws shall not be replaced," and had banners saying "No to secularism," and that is according to the AFP news agencies. And we end with some news about the Biafra group there in Nigeria, and the national president of the indigenous Igbo Youth Congress, Chief John Mayor Echefu, has said that the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, would not have taken to a peaceful struggle for the emancipation of the Igbo if successive leadership of the country have been fair to the Igbo. In a statement, Echefu emphasized that his group, after considering the plight of the Igbo, has decided to support Kanu in his peaceful approach to the realization of the Biafra project. He said, I'm quoting him, "After the civil war, the government said there was no victor, no vanquished, but its action and policies since the end of the war have proved to be the contrary." And that is the latest there from across Africa. And if there's anything else I've left out there, kindly write to me and let me know. And when you do that, it's always nice to know where you're watching us from. So now let's just talk about this a few of this news that I just read us here. And we start with the crisis, of course, in Mali. And we've seen now the opposition has come out and rejected what the mediators there that was led by former president of Nigeria, former President Jonathan Goodluck there. He led a high delegation from the ECOWAS bloc to come and try find a solution there in Mali. As you said there, AU has not been very vocal about these matters, and we were having this conversation yesterday. I don't know if you watched us, and this is a situation where you would expect the African Union to come in very quickly and salvage the situation and just try to help bring some order in this country here in Mali before things completely go out of hand as it is right now. People have been killed out there in the street protesting. Protesters have been clashing with the police officials. Just over a week ago, we saw the protesters even going into the parliament of Mali and vandalized nearly the whole place. So as much as, the cries and all that is legitimate, but sometimes, I don't know, when we use so much force, that is when our leaders understand what we want and the kind of change that we need. A lot of us sometimes are forced to go to extremes, so that the people in power and the people responsible are able to respond to us appropriately. I don't know if there will be a different way, to engage, but apparently, that is what our leaders in this continent understand. Protest, vandalism, use of force, because also the law enforcers a lot of times use excessive force. But in the case of Mali, if you've been watching, the protesters have been calling for President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta to resign over a couple of things they're having a problem with. That is, to start with, they're saying, the insecurity in Mali has just gone on to, places where it has never been before. There's a lot of insecurity that has continued, and we know that Boko Haram also has been very active in Mali, and that's why we have to talk about. That's why we talk about Nigeria nearly every day when we come during this show, because we know that Nigeria is the home place, is a safe haven for Boko Haram. Otherwise, we will not be hearing of Boko Haram since they started. The continued, leadership there in Nigeria has given an enabling environment for Boko Haram to thrive, and that is what is there. Otherwise, that is something that even before President Buhari had come there, the person before that would have dealt with, failed to do that. So President Buhari, while he was campaigning for his first term, said, when I come to the office, 100 days of my presidency, I will get rid of Boko Haram. And what has happened? About 5 years later, or nearly 6 years, is it? Nearly over 5 years later, and Boko Haram has continued to grow. Boko Haram has continued to be strong, and now we see it is one of the reasons why the protesters in Mali now are taking out to the streets. What they're saying is, if you cannot protect us, if you cannot, assure us, as our head of state, that our lives, are protected, our properties are protected, our animals are protected, us in this country are protected, you cannot assure us of our security because your government has failed to offer us that security. So what now we're going to do is we're going to go out in the street, we're going to protest, we're going to vandalize, we're going to use all means necessary so that to bring you to bring to your attention that we've had enough of the lack of leadership from the government, and so now we want you out of the office. And that is what is precisely happening there in Mali, because those are just one of the key issues. The insurgency in Mali right now, it's about 8 years old. It has intensified. It has, people have left their homes. People are moving from their villages. The same thing that is happening in parts of Nigeria. Did I not just read the first two after? Okay, we'll go to Nigeria after I'm done with Mali, but it is the same. It is the same insecurity. It is the same story now. And Malians have had enough of it. Of course, also, the problem in Mali also is compounded by those elections that happened early in the year, where about 31 legislative races, were cancelled by the judiciary, court there, after the Electoral Commission announced that they had won these positions. And a lot of these seats are from the opposition, so a lot of these things, and also the economic crisis there and corruption corruption, but most importantly, it is the insurgency there, the Islamic State, the Boko Haram. Actually, they have, continued to gain momentum there in Mali, and their security is at an all-time high. And they're saying, hey, enough is enough. If you cannot protect us, if you cannot assure us, President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, if you cannot, as a head of state, assure us as Malians that our lives matters, and you'll do whatever to protect us against any kind of threat that is not being brought by this extremist group. You failed to do that. Matter of fact, even the leader of opposition there was kidnapped just before those elections, and there were some claims that the president also is sort of protecting this Boko Haram and this extremist group there in Mali, because this person was kidnapped. And then the president was the one who was giving the update, saying, "Oh, he's okay where he is," and all that. And just a couple of months ago, maybe about 2 months ago, Keïta himself said he was thinking about bringing the Islamist group to the table, bringing Boko Haram to the table, and sitting with them and having conversations with them, and how to solve the insecurity in Mali, and how do you negotiate with a terrorist group? Tell me how that negotiation would look like there for the people of Mali. So things like that is what Malians said. Enough is enough. If you cannot protect us, if you cannot fight these Boko Haram groups, if we continue leaving our villages and being internally displaced people in our own country, and others are forced to move on to other countries for those who live in the borders. So it is a dire situation. That's why I've always wondered, why is it, as we'll look at right now in Nigeria, just on Sunday there was an attack. On Saturday also night there was an attack. And it is said that they're saying 17 bandits were killed. I don't know why they call them bandits. These are criminals. I've insisted on that. These are criminals who walk around with weapons and guns and to shoot. When you walk around with a gun, it is not a flower. It is not something that is not harmful. It is you're there and you're ready to fight and to kill, especially. So I don't know why they keep calling them bandits. So apparently 17 of them were killed, but also about 16 troops, the army of Nigerian, were killed there in that attack. That was on Saturday, and that attack happened in northwestern Nigeria in a place called Jibia in Katsina State. So you tell me. And then that was on Saturday. So on Sunday also, there was another, on Sunday night, Fulani herdsmen, criminals, invaded Kukum Daji in Kaura local government area of Kaduna State. So the other one was in Katsina, this other one is Kaduna State. So these are people who keep killing, and of course the numbers they're yet to confirm. They killed more than 21 residents there in Kaduna State. All right. So these are killings that happen. These are criminal activities that have thrived, that the president is not doing so much to try to address this matter. And it's quite interesting. So what I've always wondered is, I'm not agreeing entirely with how the Malian, protesters have been going about their protest, the way they went to Parliament and vandalized Parliament and broke into personal properties, and just that is not okay. I think you can still hold a peaceful protest, make your point without destroying anybody's property, without causing a lot of damage to your own country. I think also we should learn how to go about some of these things. Sometimes protesting is the only way that we feel that our voice can be heard. But even as we do that, I would just urge us to be just a little bit responsible, because at the end of the day, after we are done, we'll still have a country here. We'll still want our country to be intact. So if we love our country so much, and we're looking for change and we're agitating for change, I think it is also prudent on our part to just be responsible citizens, regardless of where we come from, which countries we are, so that to ensure we are also taking care of the same country that we love so much, that we are agitating for better. Also, we can do better, but by when we protest, we're not causing any damage. So what has been happening in Mali, for the past over a month now, I think is quite something. And whatever resolutions that former President Jonathan Goodluck, made when he led the team from ECOWAS there in Mali. The opposition came out and said, we're not agreeing. So they're saying that one of the proposals there was for President Keita to form a unity government, to bring in the opposition into part of the government and try to solve. And as much as I see that working here, the handshake working here in Kenya, we saw it a bit of it in Zimbabwe. You remember former opposition leader, the late Morgan Tsvangirai, after that disputed election there was a unity government formed. I think Kenya is set presidents after the chaos here 2007, 2008, and we've seen such scenarios. So in some parts it's perhaps a good thing, but in other parts I'm not sure. So now what is happening today in Mali? President Keita is saying, no, I don't think I want to resign, but what I want to bring everybody to the table. I want us to form a unity government. I want us to just be all happy and we have one huge cabinet and everybody together and all that. I don't think that is even any of the things, the issues here that these protesters are raising, because they're protesting against economic crisis. They're also protesting against corruption. And they're protesting against an 8-year-old Islamic insurgency, that is Boko Haram. And also they're protesting against the bad elections that happened was it in March or April. So I don't know how forming a unity government is going to solve these problems here that have sent people to the street. President Boubacar, he said no, he's not. So he's been trying to appease the protesters there. And first he dissolved the Constitutional Court that suspended the elections of the 31 legislators. And also, I think last week, as I told you, that his son also resigned. He was heading a certain important committee there in Parliament. I didn't even know that. The son of Keita, he had a son who was heading one of a very powerful committee there in Parliament. He also resigned. He said, for the sake of Mali, my country is bigger than myself and my position. So for the sake of peace and bringing people together, I'm resigning from my position. And I was just thinking, okay, maybe the father could follow suit, but Abraham Boubacar, he's saying, I don't see any reasons that I should resign. I don't know if he's willing to come out and address these problems that these people are suggesting, but it appears, one, he wants to bring everybody and form a unity government with the opposition, the opposition is saying, no. We still are steadfast with our demand and we want President Keita to resign. So back to, the insecurity that is just one of the key things that is now making protesters there in Mali go to the street and demand for President Keita's resignation. It is the same insecurity, and I've wondered here before, why hasn't the general public in Nigeria, I'm not inciting a riot here, but I'm just saying, with what you're seeing, because maybe the other part of the country is feeling, this is just happening in the north, the kidnappings are just happening in another part of the country, the injustices are just happening in the other part of the country. But before you realize, Boko Haram is gaining traction. Every day it is gaining ground and it's finding its way into the interiors of other parts of Nigeria. Why hasn't the general public there, the well-meaning citizens in Nigeria, come out, to protest, to call for action over the rising insecurity in their own country? Why are they very comfortable? Why have I not seen all these very wonderful celebrities who we enjoy? Nigeria is leading in terms of how much movie they produce here in the continent, I believe, per year. They do so much, and their stories are the way they tell their stories are enjoyed, not just in Africa, but world over. Why are they not using their positions and voices to voice talk about this insecurity in Nigeria? Why have the people who have a voice there, who matter there, who perhaps their words could carry some weight, why are they not speaking about the insecurity there in Nigeria? Why has everybody turned their blind eye? Why? So now on Saturday, security forces there in the northwestern Nigeria, in Katsina State, 16 army officials lost their lives, and in the same time they killed 17 bandits. not bandits. I call them criminals because that's what they are. That's who they are. So look at that. So now this brings us to the same conversation we were having last week on Thursday and Friday, where a group of army officials in Nigeria, resigned. They said, we give up. We don't have any more passion to be part of the army of Nigeria because one, we are very ill-equipped, and two, even the monies they were supposed to be getting in terms of allowances, they don't get to us. The officials, they're up there. Through corruption, they don't get to benefit from that. So, but now you see when they say that their weapons are quite inferior compared to that of, the Boko Haram. So it's quite interesting, and we have to talk about this. We have to talk about this insecurity in Nigeria because it's important for the rest of Africa. If one country is so insecure the way Nigeria is, then there's no way I'll be sitting in the East African, nation here, Kenya, and feel very comfortable because, as I said here before, you never know. Perhaps they could be even in talks with Afrca in the East African region. So you never know because these criminal groups, these Islamic these extremist groups, they're based on ideology, and they can do whatever to make sure that they spread this ideology. Anybody that is willing to be recruited, they can recruit. And that's why this thing has to be arrested before it gets, it is out of hand already. But I think before it goes even further than it is right now. So the killings there that happened in Nigeria on Saturday and on Sunday there. So another interesting story that is from Sudan, and the Sudanese army says it has started legal action against activists and journalists, accusing them of insulting the military. Now, in a statement, it said they had crossed the bounds of patience, and activists and rights groups complained that the army has blocked investigations into the killing of scores of protesters on June last year, and the Sudanese military denies this and says those who committed offenses will be punished. I don't know if you remember last year, I think June 3rd, the killings that happened, tens of people were killed there, and of course the part of the military was accused to have carried out the killings. Remember during the protests there, when the protesters had refused to leave, the army headquarters there that also houses the house, that also houses the head of state's, I think, house there, where Omar al-Bashir was staying. And so after that, this year, they tried also the protesters, and the first anniversary of those killings, they came out and they were protesting against the same, and they're saying the reforms that they had been promised are quite slow. So they were saying we need the people to, we need the government to expedite in arresting some of the officials that were participated in those heinous acts, and also some of these reforms needs to be started, because they're saying it's a bit slow. But what they should understand is right now, as it is, the transitional government in Sudan, it's quite fragile. The army officials had their own way of how they want to do things, and the protester side also had their own way of what they want and the change they want and all of that. And we know that a lot of the army officials right now that are part of the government right now, the transitional government, they are from former president, allied to former President Omar al-Bashir, and somehow they're still quite loyal, and they still come, they have the same mentality from when they were with the President Omar al-Bashir. So accepting this kind of changes that the protester side wants, they've always, being at loggerheads there because they don't agree. They don't see things the same way. The protesters are saying we want a progressive, we want a progressive constitution. We want a more liberal Sudan. And the other side is saying no. As a matter of fact, I remember the other news that I also just read here earlier. There was a protest there in Sudan with a few Sudanese there supporting, the constitution, as it were, because remember the constitution of Sudan was kind of hinged on a bit on Sharia law. So part of that was to be lifted. So dozens of pro-Sharia supporters, protested in Sudan's Khartoum on Friday over recent government reforms that allow non-Muslims to drink alcohol. So when you see this other side is pushing for a more liberal, for a more accommodative, for a more relaxed, Sudan, but there are also people there that are supporters of former president and also pro-Sharia supporters who came out and said, no, these laws, because in Sudan you cannot drink, you couldn't drink, whether you're a Christian or whatever, you couldn't drink. There was a law in place for that. So now the recent government reforms say that they will be allowing non-Muslims to drink alcohol and also to scrap the apostasy law and public flogging, like we see a lot of it being even advocated for by Al-Shabaab and Boko Haram, things like that. Like the public floggings, that's part of it in places where we've seen this Islamist extremist groups, be very vibrant. You've seen such images coming from there. So that was also part of the Sudan's constitution. But now the new reforms that the government is now looking for, the transitional reform. Remember, Sudan's constitution was suspended last year, so they're not just working on the new constitution. And the protesters side, they want a more liberal, more forward-thinking, I might say, more more westernized, if I may, constitution that allows pro-choice, and you're not subjected to the Sharia law. And they're saying now we need more freedoms here as compared to how things used to be there. And now we see supporters, they're coming out and saying, no, some of these laws that you're introducing, you're not agreeing to. And what these protesters were shouting is God's laws shall not be replaced. So you can tell, and no secularism in Sudan. That is already a problem. And now perhaps you can see even more problems looming in the future there in Nigeria. So when you see now the Sudan's army, which we know is the pro-Sharia, laws, and because a lot of them are pro-Omar al-Bashir there, as I said there earlier. So now they're saying that they'll start taking legal action against activists and against journalists, accusing them of insulting the military. In Sudan, it's not a place where you could criticize the government, you could not criticize the military, you could not criticize the leadership in that country. But now, with this new leadership that has come in, being led by Prime Minister Abdel Hamdok, we're seeing them try to exercise these other freedoms and rights from outside, say from a country like Kenya. Here you can, as long as you're not insulting the head of state, which even some Kenyans do, which is not right, but as long as you're not outstepping so much, your freedoms, but you're allowed to exercise your freedom of speech as, per our Kenyan laws, or indeed across other countries in Africa and indeed across the world. So this people feel that it is about time they started enjoying such rights in Sudan, and the military is saying no, and so it is saying right now it will start taking legal action against any activist or journalist that keep insulting the military. So we have a problem ahead. At the same time, you're seeing pro-Sharia people, Muslims, protesting against these new laws that will lift some of these bans that have been there for quite a long time. Can you see the workings, and that tells you something is brewing there in Sudan. And remember, there was an attempted coup last year in June, remember? Was it in June? Yeah, there was an attempted coup there by another group that were pro also former President Omar al-Bashir. So this story here in Sudan. So, of course, as I said there earlier, the activists and rights groups complain that the army has blocked investigations. How will the army investigate themselves? Because it is the army that are being accused of carrying out these killings that happened last year and prior to that. So you expect that the army would go and investigate themselves? So that will not happen. So they'll keep being at loggerheads there, the protest side and the army side. So, of course, the transitional government there in Sudan is supposed to be there for the next 3 years. I think now they've done close to nearly a year. I think when we get to August, if I'm not very wrong, it will be nearly a year. So they have 3 years to transition and to create a constitution, and also to allow for a democratic election there to happen. So that story in Sudan is something that we shall be following very, very keenly. Let me just read some of your comments here. And while you write, please, it's always a pleasure to know where you're watching us from. Bismarck Bura, very nice to have you this afternoon. Thank you so much for watching. And Bismarck, you're saying, in such a situation like in Mali, do we blame regime changes? I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, do we blame regime changes there in Mali? There are possibilities, of course, that there are people who are funding this protest. There are people who are behind some of these, things that they're demanding from. So they come. Usually it starts as a very noble idea, just a few, citizens who maybe are disgruntled about a few things about the government. And then the regime changes usually just come in subtly. You won't even know. And they're like, you know what? We agree with what you're saying. We agree with your stand, and we are willing to fund and to see that the government listens to you. So yeah, there are higher chances that there are people behind the protests that are happening there in Mali. There are people who are funding and who are bankrolling. So I wouldn't be surprised should that be the case. There's Zion Man, you're saying Biafra is the solution. A prophetic leopard court. Chung, you're saying Kwamon is watching. All right, and thank you for joining. So now listen, I have a story here for you. Chiboze Ezwegu, you're saying Nigeria is doomed and the heading to the dustbin of history. And you're watching from Kenya, G71 Kakuma, Brisbane, Sydney, back to Kenya. Okay, all right. Sawa. So now, before we get back to that story of Nigeria and the insecurity there, and as I said, insecurity is just one of the reasons why Malawians are taking out, not Malawians, Malians. I don't know why I keep confusing them. Mali and Malawi, those are two different countries there, but also when Malawi survived another chaos that was imminent there, they were able to survive, and we thank God for that. But Mali, one of the key things that the protesters are disgruntled with about President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita's government is the insecurity, the issue of Boko Haram and other extremist group in that country that the president has refused to address. Matter of fact, Keita just a few weeks ago had proposed that it is time the government had a talk with Boko Haram. And I remember sitting here thinking, what? Before even the protest began there in Mali, if you were an ardent watcher of, Diaspora Dispatches, we talked about this, and I thought, when had it become okay to sit down and negotiate with terrorists? And we would encourage, because if Keita went ahead and did this in Mali, they would see Boko Haram in Nigeria trying also to find its place on the table and negotiate about its position there in the country, and other militant groups across the world, not just in Africa. So we were questioning that, and now see what is happening there in Mali. All right, so let's look at South Sudan. This news I found to be very interesting. Now, South Sudan's Vice President, Dr. James Wani Iga, is in an unprecedented move, knelt before local chiefs in Bor to beg for peace amidst reports of ongoing intercommunal clashes in the troubled Greater Jonglei state. Now, according to a local radio station, Iga arrived in Bor on Sunday, leading a high-level committee to conduct meetings with elders from Jonglei and Pibor administrative area to resolve perpetual intercommunal conflicts. While meeting with local chiefs, Iga knelt down in humility. And I was just looking at these photos. This vice president, South Sudan has about 5 vice presidents. And Riek Machar is the first vice president. So I think he's more senior. He's more, compared to the rest of the vice presidents. But so one of them, that is Dr. James Wani, went to these areas that has been very synonymous with the intercommunal fightings, then clashes that so far since, let me tell you something, since the beginning, was it since March, is it? Has claimed about 658 lives. Can you imagine that? That is after signing of the peace deal that happened in February, all right? And then 452 people have been wounded and about 592 others have been abducted there in South Sudan. So this Vice President, Dr. James Wani, he went, and when he was speaking with the leadership and the local leaders in these areas, there he is, he's kneeling down and he's trying to plead, and he's saying, hey, come on now, you know your children are the ones who are involved in this. You know them, you can identify them. I'm pleading with you, I'm begging you. And he said to have knelt down in humility and appealed to the elders to persuade their children who are involved in the intercommunal clashes with neighboring communities. Now, the vice president was appointed by President Salva Kiir to head an investigation committee into the conflict and identify the root causes of intercommunal violence in the greater Jonglei area. It's quite interesting, that photo there. It's quite interesting. I don't know, will that be enough to convince the people there in South Sudan, the ones who are being involved and who are fueling these intercommunal clashes, to stop? Because we've seen a lot of, like, according to this United Nations Human Rights Commission report, it says about from, is it March or April, this year alone, about 658 people have lost their lives. This is a lot of people who keep dying needlessly there in South Sudan. So by this Vice President, Dr. James Wani, coming out and kneeling and begging and pleading with the chiefs and the local leadership there in these areas that have seen an increase in the intercommunal, clashes, will this persuade these people to pursue peace? Why is it? Why? Even after signing of the peace deal in February, you would think this would be the time that they would encourage, peaceful coexistence there. But when you look at how South Sudan is, and even when was it? About 2-3 weeks ago, a report that showed that, a lot of, soldiers, not even 2-3 weeks ago, for a couple of months now, they have been leaving, the camps where they're situated, and they have been going back to the communities, with guns. And some of these guns, they can't even be accounted for. So when they go back there, they form back these small, village militias or ethnic militias, and they start attacking other communities. And that is what has been really fueling this intercommunal, clashes. They're not just fighting with arrows and bows, although that also is involved, but they also have those, weapons, the guns from the military, which some of them have left the military cantonment areas and slid back into the communities because of the bad conditions in some of these camps. And this has continued to fuel these intercommunal, clashes. But what I'm just wondering, these are people who have seen what a war can do, have gone through years of war. In fact, their children in South Sudan, the younger generation of 20, 25 and below there, 30 years and below, who know nothing but war. They've grown up in war, they've seen war, they've been part of war, they've survived the war. Have they not seen what war can do? And why is it that they don't have a taste, for peace? They're not longing for peace. Why is it? Is it so difficult to encourage peace? You would think when somebody has seen the worst of something, when they see something that is the alternative and is better and is a parallel of what, they've been through, you would think they would encourage that. Why has it become so difficult for South Sudanese, not all of them, but for the, I don't want to say for the few, but because there are a good number of people there? Why is it? Why is it that they don't want this peace so bad as we want it for themselves? Remember last week we were having this conversation, and one of our, when we were looking at should the world come in and continue helping South Sudan, and one of our panelists there who has had an experience in trying to bring peace in South Sudan also was part of that peace process, said, if they refuse to want peace, then we shall want that peace for them by force. And I'm thinking, okay, so how is that even going to happen? Because why is it that the leadership of South Sudan, somebody has to beg and tell you peace is important? Can you please talk to your children so that we are able to maintain peace? Why is it? What is the problem? Have people been used to war so much that when they're not worrying, they don't know what else to do because they've lived in war, they were born in war. That's all. That's the language they understand. Why is it that the rest of the world is wanting peace so much more than the leadership there wants peace, more than the local leadership there wants peace. So when this, when this person, the vice president, is kneeling there and begging, the elders there, the elders know, because these are their children. So that means you encourage that. You are the ones who are helping them out, because if you sat down and said, oh no, we have gone through this, we fought to have our country, now we have it, now we have to build our country, now we have a responsibility to protect our country. We fought the bigger enemy, they gave us, we had a referendum, we're here now, we have a country to build. We've gone through a turmoil over 7 years of warring, and now we've signed that peace, as much as it's quite fragile, but we have to start from somewhere, and signing of that peace deal, and that agreement in February was supposed to be just a good step towards a better direction and finding peace, a lasting peace in South Sudan. But even since after the signing of that peace deal, nothing has changed. Matter of fact, things continue. These are deaths that are being reported after the signing of that peace deal. And then you wonder, what is so off with the people of South Sudan? Not all of you, because I know a lot of, especially our viewers here, are peace-loving people. But what is it about, this mentality of just violence and conflict and ethnical, tensions that have continued there in South Sudan? And I know a lot of the politicians there and the stakeholders up there, some of them are the ones who are fueling this war. But can South Sudanese, it's easy to just blame the leadership. It's easy to blame the elders. It's easy to blame everybody else. But as the citizens of South Sudan, what do they want? Are they ready for that peace? Are they longing for that peace? Do they want that peace? Because they would make a demand. The politicians, they will not come there with a gun and come shoot people in the intercommunal, the clashes that have been going on. But they find a citizen that is ready and willing to fight against the other citizens, because they're not from their political, they're not from their ethnic groups, they don't speak the same political, language, they don't believe in the same, things. So it's easier for them to come and arm these young people to fight against the other groups and the other ethnical communities there. But if these people who are being used here were for a different cause, were for peace, were supporting, were for wanting a stable South Sudan, then these politicians and these people up there will not have anybody to use. And I think that is the tragedy of Africa. Sometimes, our leadership with the bad conditions and the joblessness, they take advantage of our younger people who sometimes don't even know any better, because the young people there in South Sudan do not know any better. They were born in war. They were raised in war. They understand war. They slept with a gun under their pillow. In fact, that was their pillow. And as we were talking here last week, we realized there's a lot of, guns there in South Sudan. Somebody said over a good million of guns. There's a lot of proliferation of, the arms there in South Sudan, even as the country now is facing an arms embargo. It is under arms embargo by the United Nations, but still, the arms still find their way into South Sudan, and a lot of people are armed there. So that has become a security nightmare even for the government. So I think there has to be a want and a will by the people themselves, by the young people themselves. There has to be some level of teaching and just try to speak to their mind, because these are people who grew up knowing nothing better. They grew up fighting. Their parents fought for their independence, and now they're there. They're fighting within themselves. So you wonder, how can we change this mentality? How can we preach peace and make the young people of South Sudan? Because I think that they have a bigger. If somebody could speak to them and have them understand, because these leaders up here, they are way on their way, to sunset. And the future of South Sudan is in the hands of the younger generation, and these younger generations are the ones who are being used, to kill and to maim and to cause havoc there against other communities there in South Sudan. So can somebody please try convincing, because this conversation about South Sudan sometimes is just it's just sad. Yeah, you would think they lived for a long time fighting. A lot of them, brothers and sisters, still stuck in the refugee camps, cannot even go back to their villages because there's no peace. You would think that life is bad enough, and so because now there's some, after signing that peace deal that was supposed to encourage them to come back and start reconstructing their country, start putting their lives together, start building the fragile peace and just building their country, but no, they have refused. I cannot. I just don't understand that. Let me see. Perhaps some of my viewers here can help me. Leopard Kong, thank you. Augebe Omot, you're saying Vice President for Economics. What does that mean? Please help me out. I know he's Dr. James Wani. Is he an economist? Please help me out. But thank you so much, Ikuku Mnoso. You're saying greetings to you, and greetings to you too. I'm doing just fine, and the world needs peace. Absolutely. And what is this? Bismarck, you're saying when people live like they reside in a zoo, then you can expect to see chaos. That is what is happening there. Where in Nigeria or in South Sudan, I saw Sir Erun Idaho, you're saying the arms manufacturers and suppliers are happy and jubilating to see their products and goods being consumed by ignorant Africans. Yeah, now that just made my heart so sad. But ain't that the reality? Yeah, that is the truth. And I saw sometimes, was it earlier this year or late last year, our African leaders were invited in Russia, and they were taken into this arms manufacturing plant. And I would see especially a few of our leaders, and President Museveni led that. They were very happy when they were being explained, this is the gun, this is what it does, this is how much, bullet it sprays after in this much time. And I was like, wow, I don't want to see this image, because I'm just sitting there thinking, those are bullets. So how many lives? When you count bullets, you're counting lives there, because what are they meant for? All right. So yeah, unfortunately, I saw that, but you're right. And Matt Fesson, you're saying when people are so used to seeing dead bodies, death becomes nothing to them. So the people of South Sudan, they just used to that kind of life. It's just chaos, because they've never known any type of order. After South Sudan gained its independence in 2011, 2 years later, nothing much had happened yet, because the country was new, so it was just putting up structures to building itself up, and then the war broke. So they're not really settled as a people, and then so they've really never known peace and tranquility. If they knew what that means. In Kenya here, we try to protect it by all means necessary. Peace and tranquility, very important. So I wish that was the case. I wish the people of South Sudan would want that peace for themselves. Forget the leaders, because we already know they really don't care much about the people there. They're just looking out after their own interest. We saw that peace deal, the revitalized peace deal. It's all about sharing positions, who gets what, who does what, who gets what, which side, gets what. But the people of South Sudan are not factored in so much. They've been left out. So even Dr. Matsanga has said here before that thing was done upside down. They did not. It was from the basis, it was just wrong from the word go, so it left out. So now I think the people of South Sudan must want peace for themselves. The people of Sudan must be the agents of peace and to stop this chaos there in South Sudan, because your leaders there don't mean well. I don't know which side, and when it comes to South Sudan, I don't have a side, because I think all of them, they're just very selfish. I think all the leaders there, they just look out for their own interest. I think all of them there, as long as it is serving their interest, they really don't care much. And reports have come out and said the leadership in South Sudan, they're actually happy with the way things are, because in such a chaos, there are no structures of accountability. So they get to gain a lot. There's a lot of public mismanagement of funds and things like that, because there are no checks and balances to see what the president and his leadership there is doing. So they get to benefit, and which should worry all of us. So now, police in Uganda used tear gas on Friday to break up a crowd of supporters outside the offices of the opposition People's Power Movement. Critics say police often target opposition rallies but never break up, well, the ruling party rallies. That is not news. So what was happening is aspirants were going to their offices there to get their nomination papers and to return the papers and all that. And, the police were there. Well, there's some aspirants who came in and their supporters came in with them. So I think they were breaking some of those COVID-19 measures because public gathering is not allowed in Kenya. I see it happening, but also it's not supposed to be happening, but also in Uganda there. And we had that conversation in the morning over a manner in which elections and even campaigning should be done there in Uganda, which that is an elaborate conversation we had in the morning, so I'll not even get into it. So when I talk about South Sudan, I get exhausted. All right, so now let's look at this news from Biafra shortly. It's about 4. Oh, I've been here that long. Okay, so I've been here for an hour. All right, so let's just wrap it up with this news from Biafra then. And the national president of the Indigenous Igbo Youth Congress, that is IIYC, Chief John Mayer Echefu, has said that the leader of Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB, Mr. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, would not have taken to peaceful struggle for the emancipation of the Igbo if successive leadership of the country have been fair to the Igbo. So what this person essentially is saying, that the reason why Nnamdi Kanu and the like-minded people that support his leadership in the Indigenous People of Biafra group there, saying the reason why Nnamdi Kanu even found it necessary is because a lot of these issues that have been raised over time and nobody has paid attention to, the successive leadership in Nigeria have not even attempted to address some of these things that have been brought up every so often. So this national president of the Indigenous Igbo Youth Congress is saying, hey, President Kanu is leading a peaceful struggle for emancipation of the Igbo and for Biafra, and so he is, I guess, in support of that. And he continues to say in a statement, Echefu emphasized that his group, after considering the plight, is this not the same person who was is this not the same person who was criticizing, I don't know if it's him, and you could correct me, perhaps I'm wrong, who was criticizing Kanu just a few weeks ago? Remember when you were having those conversations here, and some of you are not very happy? If I was near, I probably would have been stoned, and I said, hey, I'm just reporting, listen. I'm just a messenger and I'm telling you what these people are saying. So now, in a statement, Echefu emphasized that his group, Echefu is the national president of the Indigenous Igbo Youth Congress. So he emphasized that his group, after considering the plight of the Igbo, has decided to support Kanu in his peaceful approach to the realization. I think we have to underline the word peaceful, very important there. In his peaceful approach to the realization of the Biafra project. Now he said after the civil war, I'm quoting him, after the civil war, the government said there was no victor, no vanquished. But its action and policies since the end of the war have proved to be the contrary. And I'm sure a lot of you Biafrans are watching there would agree with this here. So it's quite interesting. Yeah, Bismarck Bro, you're asking, is it trying to narrow up towards the Biafra? I think that is what he's trying to do, and I think in the past, he's this person, the national president of Indigenous Igbo Youth Congress, sometimes he has been defiring his thought process, how he thought this movement could have been led, was quite different from what Nnamdi Kanu, I think, his approach and how he's been going on this, because we know he has been leading a peaceful. I've not heard and I'm not an advocate for Biafrans or IPOB or anything like that, but I've not read anywhere, because I look up for this information, and I've not read anywhere where he said, okay, now we need you to get armed and go fight the government of Nigeria, or go fight and this and that. I've not seen that being encouraged. A lot of times I see maybe sit at homes. If you don't want to participate in that election, just don't go out there. Just sit in your homes. Don't go out there causing chaos and all that. Last time during a general election there in Nigeria. So now we see this person that I think has been a critic of Kanu himself in the past. Now he's coming out and he's saying, hey, you know what? I'm in support of the peaceful struggle. And I think, as I said there earlier, peaceful is very important, because we have enough fires to put out in Africa. So even if you're agitating, for something that you truly are convinced is the way to go, I think going about it peaceful. We've seen people who, brought a lot of went into the book of history as people who brought change. We saw the congressman there in the U.S., Lewis. He was part of, the people who really even agitated for black people to be allowed to vote in the United States together. He was very young that time, and he was following after Martin Luther. And Martin Luther, his mantra and his protest and his agitation, it came in a very peaceful way. And we saw Martin Luther, he did not agree so much with what, say, Malcolm X was. They were like polar opposite of each other, because Malcolm X was quite aggressive. He believed in an aggressive way of going about things, but Martin Luther believed in peaceful protest, believed in peaceful agitations. And we see today he's gone in the book of histories. He's remembered as much as and he's left his mark in the history, not just in the United States, but also across the board, which we can borrow. And I think that is what Nnamdi Kanu has been trying to also do there. He's been agitating, but in a peaceful struggle there. So quite a different way, and I think very effective. So this person is saying, hey, I'm supporting Nnamdi Kanu there, and I'm supporting his peaceful approach of trying to find a solution, and also trying to agitate for a referendum, so that, if Nigeria can agree with that, we are able to do that. But his peaceful, struggle there, very important. So he says, after the civil war, the government said there was no victor, no vanquished. And I think anybody from there, you would understand what this means. But they say that the actions from the Nigerian government has been quite contrary to this promise. So he's now supporting, and he's saying he agrees in the manner in which Nnamdi Kanu has been carrying out this struggle, and he will be willing to support Nnamdi Kanu in his peaceful struggle for the emancipation of the Igbo. All right, Biafrans, I know you're watching. Let me see. Noachuku, Biafra, you're saying all hail Biafra. All right. A prophetic leopard called Chung, you're saying how many Ugandans are in Sydney, Australia? Surely, I don't know. You can tell me. I think you're from there. You can tell me. You can help me out with that. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everybody. I think my time is up, way up. So I'll see you here tomorrow. All right. I hope we meet here tomorrow for another Diaspora Dispatches. Usually we come at 3 p.m. East African time. Do the math from where you are, what time that will be, and make a date with me here, and I'll come back with more news. My name is Miriam Mugutu. Thank you so much for watching, and a very good afternoon to you, or good morning, or good evening, depending on where you're watching me from. Bye-bye for now.
must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.